So I'm Kim Keller. I'm basically a street photographer, and I submitted a bunch of stuff to the original call for artists. So I was delighted to find that these two were accepted to this show. And then when I got the invitation to speak for this event, I thought, oh, well, I should talk about these two. And then I thought, oh no, these are really different. How am I going to do this? So basically, I started by thinking, okay, this one is the pandemic photo. You've got your guys in their blue mask, and this one, called July 4th, because it was taken at a July 4th parade, really, you wouldn't necessarily know what year this was taken in. Interestingly, they were actually both taken in the summer of 2021. So that's something they have in common. And as I got to thinking, I thought, well, they're both really pandemic photographs in a way. So, I mean, this one, it's really obvious. We've got these two fellows here. They've got their blue mask on, clearly. And they're both behind these glass barriers and in their separate frames. So they're kept apart from each other and from the viewers. So we've got this screening, this distancing. And in this one, you think you see, or you appear to see, this marching band and this crowd, and it's bright and colorful, and maybe people are all packed in together. But all you really see is a person with a horn. Everything else is a reflection. And that's a real reflection. I mean, it's not, sort of photoshopped or manipulated, but it does have the effect of an illusion. I mean, a reflection, you can't touch it, it doesn't have 3 dimensions, and it brings things together, it pulls things more closely together. So in some ways, it feels like a wish or a fantasy, it flattens things, they're closer than they appear. So I thought that was interesting about this. We've got this guy with his gloves on and this reflective thing. So in some ways I thought it was interesting that this exhibit made me think of these two together. I mean, I must have taken, several thousand pictures in 2021, and a lot of them had something to do with the pandemic because there it was, you really couldn't escape it. But this show made me think about these two in a different way, and I thought that was interesting, and it adds a different dimension to the what I would have said my process was, which was taking the pictures, editing them, and sequencing them. So I found that interesting, and look forward to finding out what the pictures I took this morning actually mean in a couple of years, when I've had a little bit of feedback and a chance to really think about them.
When I chose those two photographs, to me, I was seeing an encapsulation in both of them.
Oh.
One in the actual, and then the reflection, they were capturing the image. So I thought they really related and were very connected.
Yeah. Thank you.
I keep forgetting that I chose all these. So I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Okay. Oh, all right.
Any questions? Any comments?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Basia Tov. I live in New York City for a very long time. And I guess living in urbanscape all the time, you do seek out the nature within it. So one of the things that I do a lot of my work around is trees, and I find trees very, having this kind of calming effect on us, and we all need it a lot in our environment, and we often look at the trees, like the whole trees themselves or the crowns, but if you just look at the level of our eyesight level, there's so much intricacies and so much character in each tree, and each one is completely unique and different. And And if you really study it closely, like the bark itself can be seen in so many ways, and new things can be discovered all the time. And for me also, just doing this work is very meditative. So, I'm thinking like about what other people said about, when you work, that it's part of your meditation and also a part of dealing with pandemic. And I did start the torso series in pandemic, and I think that's probably was one way for me also to like kind of find an escape into maybe not a larger a larger landscape, but into like finding like detail and depth in a smaller area. And so this is with watercolor background and some foreground, and then watercolor pencils for most of the detail. And yeah, so it's in 6. I didn't want to put any specific meaning to each of the paintings, so I just call them sequentially 6, 7, and so on as I add more. And I don't know when I'm going to be done with them, but when I will feel when I'm done with them. But right now it's really hard to finish with them, because when you go around and you see a new tree and you're like, wow, this is beautiful, and this is new and unique, and I've never seen it, and you want it, and you have an idea for a painting. So, any questions?
Do you work from photographs or from life?
So I do both, but because when it's that, time consuming, I will take photos of that tree and bring it back and continue working at home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm asked to talk about work that's part of a series. It's a little bit like opening a book in the middle and sort of pulling some random excerpt and explaining the work. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about what bookended this work, what came before it, and what I hope will come after it, and a little bit about my process. So for me, creativity always happens in a series, and it evolves over years of questions and research that inform both the context and the materials. So even though I'm a painter, the end result might not always be a painting. These 2 pieces in particular reference and overlap my ongoing interest with marks, and those marks being both metaphorical and literal, as a fleeting notation of our existence. These questions form symbolic comparative relationships that document what I believe is the hierarchical cataloging of our history. I've long been intrigued with the writings left on the earth that signify what we leave behind as symbols of our existence and their relationship to the natural world. So these recordings for me are as direct as children's drawings and as monumental as Stonehenge. I consider those both important markings. I remember being drawn to the heroic stone angels in the cemetery in Mexico City as a child, and then coming back years later and seeing them broken and lying on the ground after an earthquake. So you'll see that some of these pieces do still reference broken stones and that impermanence. I painted stone angels from South American and Italian cemeteries, juxtaposing them with other relationships as a comparative element to objects that we deem as timeless, validating our own fleeting existence. I've been intrigued with the idea of the stone angel as messenger and as a marker for over 30 years, alongside cave paintings, stone walls, and other various human markings on the land. As I look at the work that preceded these pieces to think about what I was going to say today, I realize that I see the same things that everyone else sees. It's the call to reassemble, repurpose, and rethink information that inspires me as an artist. My visual recordings conflate to accommodate a different context. And as I said earlier, although formally trained as a painter, I'm a multidisciplinary artist that now rotates between bodies of work to consider persistent questions. My current work, Color Me Flesh, is an ongoing investigation that began at the American Academy in Rome in 2019. And it's about query, about validity and hierarchy in recording our human story through a colonialist lens. I also often work with the representational landscape and reconnect with the cadence of nature while considering its overlapping relationship with time, myth, natural order, and permanence. So when I'm working with the landscape, I borrow a place. I borrow a light or a cloud, a shape, and I hold it in an attempt to hang on to this fleeting nature that we have. I want to prolong it. These artifacts, visual recordings, both found and made, are refitted within a different context and juxtaposed over this greater idea that I'm interested in of imbalance. The pieces here, artifacts found with creepy knots and artifacts found broken balance, are a direct attempt to assimilate symbolism that's found in nature and object association with the underlying conversations in these particular pieces of otherness by using the creepy knot as a counting of the senses. I believe my overlapping circle, if I had to think about it, is us in symbolic relationships and the mythos both created and found and those symbols that document a greater purpose. The use of found and created objects continues my interest in the larger picture of our need to leave something behind, something grand and timeless to mark our evanescent journey, as well as the awareness of the hierarchical lens that interprets, records, and also counts these objects for history. These concepts and their precarious imbalance have really captivated me and continue to be, I guess you would say, a muse that pull me back in the studio and I keep making more things, right? So, thank you.